Yes, he
Good
did.
job. Certainly did.
Can you hear us now?
There was
One of the things that's nice about Unity Fellowship is the fact that no matter whether you're white, black, brown, purple, green, gay, straight, bi, trans, you're welcome here. You know, it's just the mindset of everybody here, include Pastor Bob all the way down. You know, everybody here. It's it's a it's home, and you feel like you're going home. You feel like you're in a big accepting family when you're here.
So, what makes Unity Fellowship different from other churches in Owensboro is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, and this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship. And I also feel like many churches focus on the individual, but we are actually meant to be in relationship with others. The concept of Ubuntu, that if one person is oppressed, that all people are oppressed. And I feel like Pastor Bob, in his sermons, he really focuses on systemic injustices and oppression, and that God is on the side of the oppressed.
Well, after many years of being out of the church, we came to a point where we were ready to find a church, but I in particular knew that I no longer wanted a part of what I had experienced as a younger person. My soul and spirit had just no longer aligned with what I was being taught about myself. So I left the church for many years, and then as a couple years later, we decided we wanted to return to a church. So I knew part of that had to be a church that was totally accepting and that not just welcome to come to the door, but could fully participate in all regard, should we desire. And so we began to visit churches, and we visited Unity Fellowship a while back, and felt like we had made a discovery in a church home.
And we also like this church because it's a teaching church. Brother Bob, every Sunday we have the opportunity after the service, or even sometimes during it, if we have questions and we're not sure of what he's talking about, or if we have questions as to the sermon that he's preaching, we're allowed to do that. And it's something that I've never had in a church. And it's been very enlightening, and I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned about a lot of things, actually. And above and beyond anything else, I know that I'm loved. I know that Scott's loved. And I know that we're loved together.
And so it's not just like going to mass at a big church and you just go in, hear the thing, get up and leave. Here you actually are charged with asking yourself, what does it mean? And the membership is small enough we can all interact during the sermon as well as after the sermon. So we can ask each other questions. You learn from other people with their comments or their questions about whatever we're discussing that week or what was discussed the week before or whatever. And unlike a large church where you just know the people from sight, you actually know the people here. Whether they are active in doing something or they're just here every week and they participate in how are you doing and stuff like that. Or they tell you how somebody else that they've talked to that you haven't seen is doing. So it's like a very large, it's not just a church family, it's a large family.
Just because you came from a Baptist background or a Pentecostal background or a Catholic background doesn't mean you're not welcome. Unity will surprises a lot of people because everyone is accepted. You will feel comfortable. You won't feel out of place. You won't feel judged. You'll feel like you belong.
Hey folks, this is Pastor Bob coming to you from Unity Fellowship. You may be really sick of church. You may have given up on church a long time ago, and maybe you're not even looking for a place. But I want to invite you to a faith community where you'll be safe, where you can be accepted for who you are. Always, for whoever you are right now on your faith journey. Check us out on Facebook Live. Check us out on Zoom. I think you'll find a place that you're safe, a place that you'll be accepted, a place that you'll feel comfortable.
What makes Unity Fellowship different from other churches in Owensboro is their focus on making sure that everyone feels welcomed and accepted with no conditions. They're accepting of the LGBTQ plus community, of different people from different backgrounds and cultures, and this is what really led me to joining Unity Fellowship. This community, at its heart, is open to everyone, and even if you are on the fence and you might disagree, we are still open to having that dialogue and that discussion that fosters growth and understanding. So I feel like the people who come to Unity Fellowship are so open and loving that even if you didn't agree with something that the church promotes, that you're still able to express that and not be judged.
Okay, I'm looking at the app. There's a chat section in the app, so mention that this morning.
Just mention there's a chat section in the app. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Unity Fellowship. We are so happy to have you here with us. My name is Christy Braycotton. I'm Service Director here at Unity, and I'd like to introduce our Associate Pastor, Gator Lone Wolf.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Wanted to echo Chrissy's words that we're an open and affirming congregation. You are safe here. There's no condemnation, there's no judgment, nothing but love. We're glad you're with us. Please engage with us throughout this service. This is not a lecture type series, so we look forward to hearing from you. And now I want to turn it over to our senior pastor, Bob Coons.
Thank you, Chrissy and Gator. I echo those words of welcome and affirmation. Word from God to everyone who is here today. You are beautifully and wonderfully made. You are a beloved child of God, and we are so glad that you're part of this gathering.
Small technical difficulty, just one moment. Okay, I'd like to introduce our first video today, the Tri-City Singers, Let My People Go. Now it's time for news, joys, and concerns. If you're on Zoom, you can unmute. Facebook Live, you can type in the chat. If you're here in person, wave at us, and Darian will bring you a mic.
Well, the first thing I've got is joy, is we've got the bell working again, thanks to guys from Owensboro Regional Recovery. They climbed up in the bell tower and reconnected ropes. And so that's a big joy, because it didn't seem quite right starting service without it.
That was really nice to hear that this morning. Okay, I'll go next. On February 19th, my husband and I are going to a fairness rally in Frankfurt. If you knew me very well, you know this is a little, formerly was out of my comfort zone. I'm trying my best not to be that person today. But me and my husband both have some pretty bad diagnoses for anxiety. So if you pray for us, to keep our strength and safety, I would appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Proud of you.
Yes, absolutely. And Chrissy, we have several people in our community that are sick right now. A lot of colds and various other kinds of upper respiratory issues going on. I know several people. Jamie is sick. Gator and Dominique have been sick. Josiah used to be sick. I think Ralph is sick. So lots of folks, and some of them are still here today in spite of that, but not in person, but joining us virtually. So keep everybody in prayer.
Definitely.
I've got a praise. I want to wish everybody a happy Black History Month, and for all the incredible contributions and experiences and rich diversity that our Black brothers and sisters bring to us daily. And then a prayer concern for all the Palestinians who have a sovereign right to their land, and ask that God protect them, protect their land against further colonialism by this government.
Definitely, Gator. Thank you.
And then I've got a prayer request. I got calls last week from my cousin, one of my cousins. My aunt has been in the hospital for the last 10 days. Her heart is functioning only at 10%. And they, I believe, have put an external heart defibrillator or monitor or something on her, or a pacemaker. But they have sent her home on hospice. Doctors cannot find any medical reason why her heart is not working. Several of us think that it's possibly broken heart syndrome, since my uncle passed almost 2 years ago, and she has been gaga over him since she was 14, and so it's a long time. And so I may be going to Texas for a funeral sometime soon, but I don't know. But just keep Shirley and her girls in your prayers, because they all need it right now.
Yeah. Sherry has reported that a lot of nonprofits are losing their federal funding. They've been told to clean up their websites and get rid of any diversity, inclusive language, and are losing funding as a result of that. Locally, New Beginnings has been hit hard, she reports. So thank you for that information, and certainly pray for those who are dependent upon federal funding and wanting to still help people.
I feel like I have something I need to share. I woke up last Saturday realizing that I had lost total vision in the right lower quadrant of my eye. The rest of my vision is now affected. My ophthalmologist reassures me that it was not due to a tumor. Instead, it was due to a tight growth affecting the optic nerve in my right eye. It
Wow.
may resolve in 3 to 6 months, or it may be permanent. There is no treatment, I just have to learn to accommodate to the changes, and I've realized that there are many ways of doing this. I now have trouble with depth perception, coordination of my movements, and at times dizziness if I get too tired. Obviously, this means I'll no longer be driving, but I was already considering this because I know my driving reflexes and judgments are not what they used to be. I'm okay with all of this. At heart, I am a homebody. I love being in my home, working in my gardens in my backyard, or just sitting in my rocker on my back porch. And yes, it's somewhat of a lifestyle change, but it is what it is, and I will deal with it. I, um, I will not become a hermit. I promise my friends I won't, and I'm okay with that. And I'm really grateful for computers and cell phones so I can keep in touch with the rest of the world, whether I want to or not. And I can honestly say I'm okay, and I'm grateful that I can be okay.
Yeah. Well, we're holding you in our hearts and prayers, Carol, and glad you can still join us, but praying for you. I know this is a hard adjustment.
Definitely, I admire your strength, Carol. Anyone else? New joys and concerns? Okay, Gator, would you like to lead us in prayer this morning?
Of course. God, Creator, we give thanks for another Sunday to gather together. We ask that you hear the prayer concerns raised this morning, those struggling with heart conditions, anxiety, the definite need for activism, the fear of losing their home, their land, their identity, all of this. Be with those individuals, give them courage, peace, and wisdom, even those who've not raised any prayer concerns today. We ask that you know how grateful we are for the great things that are happening that sometimes go unmentioned. We are grateful. We are thankful. Open our hearts and minds again, God, to the message this morning, to the interactions with each other this morning, so that we peel back the layers of callousness or melancholy that the world puts on us, and we really get sensitive to the needs of others and ourselves, so that we're able to meet that day in and day out with compassion and empathy. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, now if you join me for our affirmation of togetherness. We gather in oneness together. We praise and worship God together. We proclaim God together. We welcome and affirm all persons in God's love together. We seek to live for God in every breath and heartbeat together. Okay, you can join our contact list by texting ADD to 270-201-5022. It'll send back a form you can fill out. You don't have to do the whole thing if you don't want to, but if you send us your name at least so we know who we're texting, it would be great. Okay, and if you'd like to support this ministry, you can do so several ways. You can get our new app, which I was also told they're starting to be able to stream on that now. So they're going to be working on that.
Yeah, let me interject just a little bit, if you don't mind. Let me encourage you, if you have not yet done so, to get the app and help us with any troubleshooting. Tell us what's going on. I noticed this morning that we're not getting the videos on the app. We should be able to get the music videos, and instead we're getting the notice that we put on Facebook Live. So thank you to Daniel and to Alex for working on that and getting the app streaming appropriately. Appreciate it very much.
Definitely. So you can get the app, you can donate there, or you can click the donate button on our Facebook page, or if you like, you can go old school and mail it to P.O. Box 1401, Owensboro, Kentucky 42302. We also have collection plates to each door of the sanctuary if you're here in person. Now I'd like to introduce our second video of the day, Louis Armstrong, Go Down Moses.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Let my people go. Now when Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. So the Lord said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaohs to let my people go. Let my people go. So Moses went to Egypt land. Let my people go. He made old Pharaoh understand. Let my people go. Yes, the Lord said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell them Pharaohs to let my people go. Let my people go. Thus spoke the Lord, bold Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn dead. Let my people go. 'Cause the Lord said, go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. So we're continuing with our Hope Against Hope series. Want to begin with our breakout question before we jump in here. Again, if you are on site, wave a hand. We'll get a microphone to you so that everyone can hear you. If you're on Zoom, you can unmute. If you are watching on the app or in Facebook Live, you can put something in the chat and somebody will read that for us. But the question this morning is, have you ever felt helpless in the face of power? And secondly, when have you ever felt let down by God? Feeling helpless in the face of power, or feeling let down by God?
Bob,
You there?
yeah, I'm here. I think there have been many times I've felt helpless in the face of power, um, particularly when we were struggling for LGBTQ rights and marriage equality. And even today, I feel overwhelmed, um, and at times feel helpless as to how to stop the hemorrhaging of rights being destroyed.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are feeling that way right now. The squeeze of power.
And I would actually say probably most of my life I felt like that. For some
Yeah.
reason right now I felt some sort of surge of energy, but I'm not sure how long that'll last. I hope it stays.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like a roller coaster sometimes, kind of comes and goes, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely.
And the two are linked. The feeling, the overwhelm of power and helplessness when faced with power, um, as well as why doesn't God do something?
Something just come to mind. I think most of the time when we get in problems, we try to work it out ourselves. And we find out that that's not going to work. So when it doesn't work, then we turn to God. And so many times God does not respond, or we don't think He responds to our requests, our needs. And I don't know, it may be something that really we don't need, but you feel like, that you do need it because you're asking God to help you with it. So it's happened to me many times that you have problems and you ask for help, God for help, and you don't receive it. But it may have received it, and I don't think you need it. So I don't know really which way that goes. But I know in my life, many times that I've felt that way.
Yeah. Thank you, Roy. The Old Testament prophets are very honest about their feeling of being let down by God, um, screaming at God sometimes, "Oh God, why?" Or "How long?" The lament uh, of the Old Testament, several of the Psalms. "How long, O Lord, will you let this keep going on like this?" Um, the feeling that God is letting people down. Jeremiah one time even complained to God that he felt like he had been raped. "You used me and threw me away." Kind of a brutal honesty with God. Anyone else this morning?
I think for some, Bob, admitting that brings great shame, particularly those maybe who were raised Protestant, most of all Baptist.
Mm-hmm.
We are taught that to question God at all or God's presence is shameful. At least I was.
Yeah.
So to openly say there were times where God didn't show up for me, um, you kind of feel like you're opening yourself up for somebody to say, "Well, you just didn't know God was there," that type thing.
Yeah. Well, we stand in pretty good company with the Old Testament prophets and even Jesus on the cross. My God, why? So there ought not to be any shame. But I understand. A lot of the old time preachers laid the shame on us, didn't they? Okay, I guess this is too sensitive a subject. We'll move on into the sermon. Uh, but thank you for those of you who did speak this morning. Um, the the series is called Hope Against Hope. A lot of folks are filled with dread right now. Cultural and political shifts have really created an environment of uncertainty. There's an upheaval, and of course, in biblical times, they felt a lot of the same things very often. So we're looking at the Bible and how they were able to cope with a season of discontent. People of Israel who were experts really at living under oppressive regimes, whether it was Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, or in the New Testament, Rome. Um, so this hope against hope, to strongly hope for something, even though it feels unlikely. Um, that's what we're talking about today. I want to begin with our scripture reading from the 5th chapter of Exodus, and Pastor G has our reading.
Moses and Aaron went to the king of Egypt and said, "This is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go so that they may hold a feast for me in the desert." But the king of Egypt said, "Who is this Yahweh? Why should I obey him and let Israel go? I do not know Yahweh, and I will not let Israel go. Why are you taking the people away from their work? Go back to your jobs. There are very many Hebrews, and now you want them to quit working?" The same day, the king gave a command to the slave masters and foremen. He said, "Don't give the people straw to make bricks as you used to do. Let them gather their own straw, but they must still make the same number of bricks as they did before. Do not accept fewer. They have become lazy, and that is why they are asking me, 'Let us go to offer sacrifices to our God.' Make these people work harder and keep them busy. Then they will not have time to listen to the lies of Moses." So the slave masters and foremen went to the Israelites and said, "This is what the king says. I will no longer give you straw. Go and get your own straw wherever you can find it, but you must make as many bricks as you made before." So the people went everywhere in Egypt looking for dry stalks to use for straw. The slave masters kept forcing the people to work harder. They said, "You must make just as many bricks as you did when you were given straw." The king's slave masters held Israelite foremen responsible for the work the people did. They beat them and asked, "Why aren't you making as many bricks as you made in the past?" The Israelite foreman rebelled against Moses and Aaron, saying, "May Yahweh punish you. You caused the king and his officers to hate us. You have given them an excuse to kill us." Then Moses returned to Yahweh and said, "Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your people? Is this why you sent me here? I went to the king and said what you have told me to say, but ever since that time he has made the people suffer, and you have done nothing to save them."
Thank you. Let my people go. That's been the cry for uh, oppressed people since Moses first stood in front of Pharaoh and uttered them. Today we dive into that clash that occurred between Moses, the liberator, and Pharaoh, the oppressor. And like most liberation movements, it is fraught with hardship and loss and struggle and danger. It is not an easy thing to confront the empire. You see, empires just don't stop their tyranny. They don't back down easily. They do not easily bow to pressure. And so I want to kind of pick this scripture apart this morning and maybe pull out some lessons that some characteristics that we've learned about empires and those who seek to confront them. First lesson, empires know that a little freedom is not enough. Moses and Aaron went to the king and said, "This is what Yahweh, the God of Israel, says. Let my people go that they may hold a feast for me in the desert." They asked for 3 days, but everybody knows 3 days won't be enough. They get a taste of freedom. The empire knows that once you get a taste, you want more freedom. That people are never satisfied with just a little bit. People want to be free. People want to express themselves. People want to be who they are. They don't want the empire telling them what they can do and what they can't do. They don't want the empire telling them who they can be and who they can't be. They won't want the empire telling them who they can marry and who they cannot marry. People want full liberation. And so empires resist even giving up a little bit of freedom to people. Secondly, empires do not acknowledge any authority but their own. Pharaoh's response to this demand from Moses and Aaron is, "Who is this Yahweh? Why should I obey him and let Israel go? I don't know Yahweh, and I am not going to let Israel go." The Jewish Midrash adds a detail that Pharaoh looked through his record of all the gifts he'd received from other kings and dignitaries. Seeing none from Yahweh, he asked, "Who is this Yahweh? I've got nothing from him." Empires and emperors and pharaohs often work on a tit for tat. If you haven't given me anything, I'm not giving you anything. And so he does not recognize any gift from Yahweh. But he also doesn't acknowledge Yahweh as an authority. The only authority that that emperors recognize, that authorities and those in power recognize, is their own. We've seen this over and over again, that nobody can tell me what to do. I'm the king. I'm the authority. I'm the power. And I can do what I want to do. Nobody gets to make demands on me. The third observation is that empires strive to maintain the status quo. They don't want things changing, especially changing toward freedom and towards justice. Pharaoh asked, "Why are you taking the people away from their work? Get back to work. There are many Hebrews here, and now you want them to quit working." He's not really worried about their livelihood or their quality of life. His concern is his quality of life, his image, his popularity among the Egyptian people. He doesn't want them to go back to work so that they will have a better life. He wants them to go back to work so that the Egyptian people will have a better life. He wants them to go back to work building the towers and images to his ego, so that he continues to have a better life. And he recognizes how many of them there are. He sees the people of Israel as a threat. He wants to solidify his own political base. And he does this by creating the Hebrew people as a common enemy, a scapegoat for whatever current problems are plaguing the Egyptian society. They're the problem. They're the ones that's making life hard for us. They're the ones that's not contributing to society. He makes them the scapegoat for every problem that is happening. And he just keeps beating them down as the straw man, that he can blame every problem that happens on these common enemies that he has created. Next is that empires retaliate with increased hardship. Notice that when he was given this demand to let God's people go, that what he did first was make things harder on the Hebrew people. He gave a command to the slave masters and the foremen. By the way, the slave masters and the foremen that he gives this command to are the Israelite foremen, the Israelite masters, not the Egyptian masters, but the Israelite overlords. He said, don't give them straw to make their bricks. Make them gather their own straw. Make them, and then instruct them that they have to still make the same number of bricks that they did before without the straw to make it easier to soak up the moisture. They're not allowed to make fewer. They've become lazy. Have you ever heard that before? That's why they're asking me to let us go off to offer sacrifices to God. Make these people work harder and keep them busy. Then they will not have time to listen to the lies of Moses. In the battle for liberation and justice, it is often true that the empire makes conditions more oppressive, and in order to quash any resistance, make it harder, make life more difficult, make those who want to resist pay. In the Jim Crow South, restrictions that allowed a white majority to maintain the upper hand, to give fewer resources, but to maintain production and high demand. Call them lazy. Say that they don't work. Say that they're criminals. Keep them occupied with no time or energy to plot, no time or energy to organize, no time or energy to seek some kind of escape. If you don't like the message, call it false. Call it fake news. Next is that empires seek to co-opt victims against each other. I mentioned just a minute ago that it was the Israelite slave masters that were given this task. And so the slave masters and the foremen went to the Israelites. This is what the king says: I will no longer give you straw. Go and make your own, or go on your own to find it. But you must make as many bricks. And so the people went everywhere in Egypt looking for dry stalks to use for straw. The slave masters kept forcing the people to work harder. They said, you must make just as many bricks as you did before. And the king's slave masters held the Israelite foreman responsible for the work of the people. They beat them and they asked them, why aren't you making as many bricks as you did before? Common tactic in among slave owners in the South before the liberation of African Americans was to beat them down, to make some of the slaves the taskmasters and beat them down and hold them responsible for beating down the workers. Empires co-opt the victims against each other. Notice how many times those who are being oppressed are the voices that you hear oppressing others. We see this in lots of interactions today. It's the people who are being beat down who sometimes are the first to speak up in favor of the beatdown. And so as a result, the oppressed often grow weary and give up. It says that the Israelite foremen rebelled against Moses and Aaron. They went against the ones who are trying to create the liberation for them. They said, may Yahweh punish you. You've caused the king and his officers to hate us. You've given them an excuse to kill us. They turn against those who are actually trying to create freedom for them, those who are trying to be liberators for them. They grow weary, they give up. By the way, that's why the powerful do it. It often works. Chrissy posted a few weeks ago a quote from sociologist Jennifer Walter. Jennifer Walter said, your overwhelm is the goal of this flurry of executive orders. They are trying to overwhelm you. That's the goal of the whole thing. They're using chaos and crisis to push through radical changes while people are too disoriented to effectively resist. It's a strategic exploitation of our cognitive limits. It creates information overload. And because of that, we kind of shut down. We're living in a desert right now. And the desert can look like a very desolate place. But if you look closely, there are signs of life everywhere. Look for the shrubs in the desert. The final point that I want to make this morning is that liberation leaders often get frustrated, but keep fighting the fight. We will get frustrated. We will get weary. We will get tired. Moses was beginning to get tired. It says Moses returned to Yahweh and said, Lord, why have you brought this trouble on your people? Is this why you sent me here? I went to the king. I said the things you wanted me to say, but ever since that time, he's made the people suffer, and you've done nothing to save them from it. This may be the first hard lesson of leadership for Moses. As he tries to understand and get his head around, you've given me this task, but Lord, it's hard. It's not easy going up against the empire. The empire fights back. But Moses does not give up. He does not return to the desert of Midian to lick his wounds. He expresses his frustration to God, but he stays the course. Without such leaders, liberation movements would likely die. We witnessed a voice just a couple of weeks ago when Bishop Marianne Edgar Buddy in Washington, D.C. Cathedral said these words to those who were gathered and to the president. I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meatpacking plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in a restaurant and work the night shifts in hospitals. I ask you to have mercy on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here. Our God teaches us that we are to be merciful to the stranger. A call for mercy, a loud and clear call to show mercy to those the Bible tells us should be shown mercy. There is no shortage of people needing to hear a song of liberation now. Thank you, Bishop Buddy. Almost all marginalized populations are scared right now. Immigrants, refugees, LGBTQIA plus people, especially trans folks are being targeted. Native Americans and people of color, religious minorities, all are in need of a voice of hope. But know this, understand this. This is a clear truth that we have learned over and over in history as well as in the scriptures. The song that offers hope to the oppressed sounds like a threat to those who are in power. Say that again. The song that offers hope to the oppressed sounds like a threat to those in power. And so there was kickback to Bishop Buddy. There was a call for her to be deported, of all things. A call for mercy from a person of God gets the response that they don't belong here. There's no hearing that call for mercy. I thank God for those who are liberators, who dare to be a voice for the oppressed, who, like Harriet Tubman, the American Moses, who sang Negro spirituals to encourage and lead her people to the promised land. A song of liberation. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt's land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. I invite your response this morning. If you are on site, we'll get a microphone to you if you'll just wave a hand. If you are on Zoom, you can unmute and we will hear you. If you're on the app or on Facebook Live, put something in the chat and we will read it for those who are gathered. Power and hope. Your thoughts, your observations, questions.
Thank you, Bob, for the good reminder that even when we feel discouraged, that we should just keep pushing forward and keep making our voices heard. And while elected officials think that they have some sort of power, and they say they represent the people that voted for them. They really also represent the people that didn't vote for them. And we need to remind them daily that we exist and that we're not just going to sit down and be quiet.
Thank you, Sarah Jane.
Cherry asked, how do you stay positive?
That's a very good question, and it's a struggle. As I said a few minutes ago, look for the shrubs in the desert. Look for those voices like uh, Bishop Buddy. Look for those who are willing to stand. Look for those who are being encouraged, like Chrissy, who was afraid to just a few weeks ago was scared to death and felt very threatened, and now she is becoming a strong voice in our community. Um, Look for those bright signs. The darkness will not win as long as we keep the light lit.
Um, I paid attention in the story to the part where the Israelis they got mad at Moses and Aaron for speaking up on their behalf because it led to more prosecution. And I think about there is parallels of that sort of infighting when people are trying to make progress and throw off oppression. Sometimes people will get mad, they'll say, don't rock the boat because we're getting wet, if, and I think you see that in history, you see that nowadays. Sometimes people will say, well, it's okay to go out and protest, but don't block traffic because people will just get mad at you. And I think sometimes we need to pay attention to some, about that opposition and remember that we're all sort of going for the same goal, even if we have our differences of how to get about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Hunter.
I think about your point, Bob, that empire does not simply hand over power.
Yeah.
And that times when we have, as Dr. King said, a moral obligation to break unjust laws. And there's a lot of unjust laws that are coming about and that have been. So we have to be creative in how we work together to undermine those laws. And we've done that by becoming a sanctuary congregation.
We have. I'm so proud of us for that.
Oh, yes. And just continue to look for ways to offer that hope, offer that eternal fire that keeps people warm in the midst of the cold and dark. I think we're really called to that. There can be no more passive resistance,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Thank you, Pastor G. There is a tendency to hear these things, like Bishop Buddy's call for mercy, to hear these things as political and partisan, even though the call for mercy is across the board. That it's not intended as a political stunt. It's not intended as a partisan activity. It is a call for mercy because that's what God calls us to. Teresa writes, she found it particularly important to note that those in power take calls for mercy as a threat to power. We have to build expectation of that reaction and get resilient. when the folks in South Africa were fighting apartheid, they understood that what they were fighting were not political enemies. They were fighting against a system that was pervasive. And so when they would be attacked, they would say, the system is here. When they would hear propaganda, they would say, well, the system is lying again. They understood that it was bigger than a political party or a partisan activity. Okay, not hearing any more comments or questions. I want to thank you for worshiping with us today. So glad that you have made it a part of your day to be with us and to worship with us, to struggle together. We're in this together. Reminder to you, you may be someone who needs to hear this today. You are beautifully and wonderfully made. You are a beloved child of God. Hold your head up high and know that you are loved. Amen. God bless you all.